great.
All
I'm
right.
actually I'm going to go live there right now.
Excellent.
And I think it's going to be good. All right,
great.
Here we go. And then I'll get us started with that little intro. If
go
you
ahead.
want.
Yeah, do a little intro and then we'll start taking comments.
It's a pretty big deal, Ant, is my argument on this one. So here we go. Oh, yes! It's fucking happened! This team finally had something go right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast, a Twitter space you can believe in. This is a hell of a night for your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. I cannot believe what has happened. We knew there was a chance that some team would screw up. We knew that Washington was going to look to move into 6 to swap with Arizona and jump the Flyers. It did not happen. And now the Flyers have kicked off a rebuild with elite talent, arguably the second best player in this draft, a guy that many people believed in any other year would have been the consensus number 1 pick in the draft. It has happened. The Flyers have drafted MATVEI Michkov. There are questions about, will he come over now? Will he come over soon? Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter. What does matter is Danny Briere, the Philadelphia Flyers, they stood pat, and they've got their guy. It's a great night. Great night.
Absolutely, it is, Russ. And I really want to give the fans an opportunity to talk with us here. I'm going to throw it over, and I don't think there's a better person to have as the first fan to talk about Matty Michkov. We're going to call him Matty, right? We're going to go by, that's Kyle Pagan from Crossing Broad. Decided he's going to call him Matty instead of Matt. So we're going to go Matty Michkov. But nobody better to express how they're feeling about this than Flyers superfan, Flyer Eric. Eric, how you feeling, brother? How you feeling about the pick? He's got to unmute the mic. He's probably so excited he forgot to unmute his mic.
It's me, Flyers Eric.
What's up, bud?
Dude, can I curse?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
I was so worried that Montreal was going to pick him, and then once they didn't, I'm like, oh my God! I was fine with Michkov or Leonard, and then when they were both there, I'm like, oh my God, he's got to pick. And then once I literally had tears of joy. I was tearing up. I was so happy. Oh my God! And any of you clowns that are still have their bags over your head, I don't know what to say there. You look like morons. I mean, they're in a rebuild. This is the great start to the rebuild. Oh my! I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic. I'm so excited. I could barely do anything. Well, I do have a question. Do you think you think now that it would be more of a possibility of getting Fedotov over here now too?
That's a good question, and Eric, thanks for chiming in. Such a great energy to start this Twitter space off. The Fedotov thing is, you got to be careful because technically he is still has his military service. He's still not out of that yet. It's not for sometime in July that comes up. So suggesting that could happen, you might put him in a little bit of a risk. So it's a purely hypothetical to talk about that. But I think that really understanding what the geopolitical situation is with those players over there, you got to be careful. Could he possibly? I guess I would not bank on it at this point. I would just say, hey, maybe sometime he's able to do it, but I wouldn't bank on it at this point. Nevertheless, that excitement, Russ, is exactly the kind of excitement that this town should have over this draft.
I mean, we've spent years together, Ant. I mean, we've spent more nights talking to each other about how the hell do we keep this thing going? How do we keep this thing growing when you're constantly forced to look at a team that has little to no elite talent? We spent how many years sitting next to each other in press row, just shaking our heads at how bad this team was and how they were devoid of hope. And in one night, it feels like the whole thing has turned on its head. And for the first time, I think Flyers fans, even the most pessimistic, even the people who are of the mindset that there still has to be everything wrong or that there are still a million things to complain about, even those people have to have a moment where they sit back and they say to themselves, you know what? This is something. This is something that we can believe in. And for once, it feels like that is real. This kid, I mean, you and I aren't exactly the biggest, draft experts, right? Like we're not
Right.
we're not scouring film of the KHL. We're not scouring I don't know, like a Swedish or a Norwegian league looking for a diamond in the rough in the later rounds, right? But talent jumps off the film. And Michkov has that. I mean, here's the best thing you could say, Ant. If you're watching the telecast on ESPN, they put 3 things up on the screen, and I honestly forget what the third was. The first one was elite goal scoring, and the second was fantastic vision or something to that effect. When's the last time the Flyers in the first round drafted a guy who has an elite goal scoring ability?
Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know.
I mean, Lindros, you'd have to go back. Well, they traded for Lindros. They didn't even draft him, right? But I mean, it was still a draft day kind of thing, right? So, yeah, I mean, that was, yeah. You don't. There's not. You got to go way back. You got to go way back for that answer.
By the way, Ant, I don't want to cut you off here, but just to explain to the people who are watching on YouTube and are watching on Facebook now, why we're doing it this way. All of the folks who are over on Twitter that are watching have the ability to interact, and they can ask questions and they can express their comments and everything and speak. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, you can go over to Twitter and you can join and you can do that. And if not, and you're watching, thank you for watching. I'll actually pull up comments. There are a lot of comments and on YouTube as well. I'm going to read a few of them off really quick. I'm going to throw them on the screen over there, and then we can go to some people here who want to talk on the Twitter side of things. But we have Pashendi says, love it, Russ. DJ 1698 says, let's go. Paul Neprakowski says the same thing, let's go. Shut Up Kristen says it's all happening. Tim Tobin, oh, hell yeah. John Ahern says, yes. Rory says, I'm at the Anaheim watch party, and the crowd went mild when they called out their pick. Joseph Trobach says, what a stupid pick, which I assume is not this one. I can't imagine it's this one. Mr. Dubizzle said, I don't know what to do with my hands. Francis David says, sweetness. K215, they passed on Yager, and look how that turned out. Great pick, Danny. Robert Kirkner says, God bless. Amen. It's crazy, guys. Like the whole side is fantastic. And by the way, on Facebook, Bill Scannon notes about Flyers Eric losing his mind. And this is something, and this is a really good question. Ryan Ingert says on YouTube, was he actually in Nashville? Yes. Michkov is in Nashville right now. Let
me throw something to you guys from Nashville, because I guess Michkov just met with the media there. He was asked, how he feels about being part of a rebuild, and he leaned into the translator, and then said, "I guess that means we'll start winning when I get here." So you got to like the confidence.
Oh, yeah.
You got to like the confidence. All right, we got a bunch of people who want to ask, who want to talk. Let's go to Cameron. Cameron was one of the first people to come in. Cameron, you're welcoming you into the Twitter space. How do you feel about this draft pick?
I feel amazing. Like I work in a warehouse in Allentown. I'm on my lunch break right now, and I'm yelling and crazy, and all my coworkers are looking at me like I'm crazy. People don't understand, man. The last 40 goal scorer we had was Jeff Carter in 2009. It has been famine here.
Yeah.
Like, and we got hope. Like the fact that in these last 3 months, like you take with the trade since the trade deadline and Chuck Fletcher and his nonsense, and now it's almost like a different universe. Like it was no hope. Like I was seriously considered like, man, like maybe we switch teams, and now I have hope again. Like I'm ready to go buy tickets. I'm ready to go down with my family, with my girlfriend, and go to the games again.
Yeah, I'll give you another quote from Michkov.
Mm-hmm.
They asked him what the most important thing is for him right now, and he said it's important for me to finish the goal that my dad had for me.
Man,
winning a Stanley Cup.
Yes.
That's
him, Cutter Garther. All like we're gonna have now, and we still got lucky number 22. So I'm waiting for we're going to get a Simone Gagne or Claude Giroux type player 22. That's our lucky number.
There you go.
So I'm ready, baby.
Absolutely.
Let's go Flyers. Let's fucking go, baby.
That's right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Attaway, my friend. Hopefully, enjoy the rest of your lunch. Stay excited at work the rest of tonight, and get all those people up in Allentown converted. Turn them into hockey fans.
Well,
all right.
Well, there are a lot of Penguins fans up here, so at least we got some ammo to fight with now.
That's right.
There you go. Absolutely. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. That's good stuff. Russ, let's throw it over to at 1965 CJW, who is the new era of orange guy, and we're going to welcome him in to the Twitter space here today. He's still connecting. Great. Now he just needs to unmute and be ready to go. You there, bud?
It looks like he was, but now he's not.
He's there. He's in, but he's not.
I was just about to say what a nice job you've done running this Twitter
there he
space,
is.
you know?
There he is.
I don't hear him.
He did unmute,
but we can't hear him. All right, put him back on hold. New era, by all means.
Put him back on hold.
When you figure that out, we'll come back to you.
Yeah. Let's do one more and then have you read some more comments for us. All right. Yep. Let's go to our old friend, one of the longtime supporters of Snow the Goalie, Trevor Harris. What's up, man?
It's about damn time we got a game breaker, which I haven't seen since 2009. Jeff Carter or Danny Briere playing. There is hope. I feel hope with this player after you gave me those few quotes. I got the goosies galore. I got the goosebumps already. As what we say in South Florida, I'm happy to say I could finally put the Flyer jersey and the flag back up in respectability now. So I am happy to say that when I'm down here in the hottest, I could be a Flyer fan again and be happy with a quality on ice product, not be a miserable hockey fan.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Were you talk me through how you were feeling as this draft was starting to unfurl in front of them? I don't think anybody thought he was going to go top 4.
Mm-mm.
You know, we kind of top 4 went. You know, there was a little bit of a surprise at 2, but it was still the top 4 were the top 4. But then when you see Montreal go Reinbacher, what's your thought process at that point?
I literally thought like, what is Montreal doing? They should have gone with a player that they could actually speed up their rebuild. But they didn't want to do that. I was like, oh, wow, Montreal taking the defenseman. I was shocked by that because I thought, honestly, Michkov would go to Montreal, then we would take the first defenseman available who's the best one. And seeing that didn't happen, then Arizona go with the defenseman, throw the biggest curveball of all time I've ever seen. And then we got the best player available who's like first overall pick in any draft that's not Bedard. Is literally hockey gods like, let's give something to Philadelphia fans because they've been miserable for so long anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. But then how about Arizona, man? I mean, you knew they weren't going to – I knew that once it got to Arizona, they weren't going to take that risk.
No.
They couldn't afford to take that risk because they don't even know where they're going to be playing.
No, not at all. Arizona's the biggest joke of a hockey team right now. They don't have an arena. They're playing in a college stadium, and no one wants to go to their games, and no one wants to vote for to get a landfill cleaned out to build an arena. It's just the craziest thing of all time. So
totally wild. Hey, well, Trev, I'm glad that you are excited down there in Florida. I'm glad you can finally wear your Flyers sweater again down there.
I'm just happy they come down in March and February, March. So we got to definitely meet up when they play in South Florida and Tampa now. That's what I'm excited for.
And it's almost like he has our group chat bugged with that comment. More to come on that.
Awesome.
Russ, I'll throw you my number. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we got a bunch of other folks waiting to get on, so I appreciate your time. I want Russ to read some comments, and keep on rooting for your team, man. They're heading in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. By the way, Russ, your Phillies are beating up my Chicago Cubs right now. I'm not happy right now. So take care, guys.
Take care.
Good stuff.
So this is crazy. So I'm back over on YouTube and on Facebook. And by the way, I pulled up the tweets that have gotten shot at this Twitter space as well. So we'll go over some of those as well. Ogie, who I believe is Corn Pop, says on YouTube, will Russ actually show up to games now? I was planning on it anyway, but yeah, definitely now. Mike Friedel says, Matty Goals, let's go. Matt Coleman.
Matty Goals.
Matt Coleman says the best was sniping him in front of the Caps, which I'll tell you what, man, I know that this isn't what happened, but when Washington went up and spoke at the mic, it almost I swore I just heard a slight quiver in the voice. Like, damn it. Like we almost had him. And how many times has it happened? And it's not just the Flyers, just in a draft in general, Philadelphia sports draft, that we've been so close, tantalizingly close to a good player. And somebody swoops in and takes them out from under us. And this time it finally works. Here's a good question. Matthew Denian asks or says, I love this pick. How do you guys see Michkov and Gauthier fitting together?
Well, I mean, obviously there's your future top line.
Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, I guess right now you would assume that Owen Tippett is your right wing with them, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they look to find somebody else to be that and have Owen Tippett ultimately be your second line right wing when you're actually a good team again, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really good fit to have Gauthier as your big center, and then have Michkov just in that left. Yeah, all the highlights you see from him is just he's in that left wing dot, just firing pucks in the top corners of the net and just making goalies look silly. And that's what he's going to be. It's going to be his office. It's going to be his happy zone. But he's got so much more skill beyond that. I mean, I don't know if anybody really paid attention to. Did you hear how excited Bush was to talk about him, comparing him as a combination of Kaprizov and Malkin? I mean, think about that for a second. He compared him to as a combination of Kaprizov and Malkin. That's insane. Hell of a player. Some hell of a player.
It's absolutely crazy. Let me keep going here really quick. There are people asking about who we think they're going to get at number 22. Let's stick on Michkov for now. We can come back to that. Brian Perlsweig says, everyone wanted to move on from the old era. Drafting a Russian in the top 10 is about as far from old Flyers as you can get. Just hoping this works out in 3 years. And I think we need to address this. I know we addressed it a little while ago, but we have new people who are on the stream on YouTube, on Facebook, and in the Twitter space itself. There have been people asking, because Michkov is in Nashville, is there a chance that he does not leave Nashville? Is there a chance that he does not leave the United States? And could he potentially, defect or something? The interesting thing in his comments was when he was asked on TV about when he's going to come over, he said, hopefully soon. Briere said, that's an answer that we would like as well, but we're ready to wait. Now, I'm not saying that have already been seeds planted or that there's a notion here that the Flyers are going to try to get him to break that contract or that he's going to try to break the contract. He wouldn't be eligible to come over until the 2026-27 season as it currently stands. But those comments are not as ironclad as saying, I'm under contract for 3 years, or the player is under contract for 3 years. We'll see him in 3 years. At the same time, you could make the argument, maybe that's because the team doesn't want to, kill some of the optimism around it. But I thought they were interesting. How do you interpret that?
I mean, they are, but I'm not going to sit here and try and figure out what that really means. What is an 18-year-old kid saying? Like, I mean, like I'm not going to try.
I'm also saying though, because Briere also said when he was asked by Emily Kaplan about when do you think he's going to come over, he said that's an answer that we would also like, which is interesting.
Yeah,
he did note that he's under contract, but that was an interesting thing I thought for Briere to say.
Yeah, it certainly is. To me, I don't think it matters if he comes over year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. The fact of the matter is, he's going to be at the latest 22 years old, coming into the league as a star potential talent. So, I mean, that to me is really all that matters. If you're a Flyers fan, I get the sense, it'll be sooner than that. I feel like there'll be a way to get him out of part of that contract, maybe buy part of that contract. But I'm not gonna make any kind of bold prediction just yet. I think that the Flyers did their due diligence. I think that they have their Russian scout Ken Hudakov is talking to the media, talking about how every time that he went to go see Michkov play in Russia, that he always talked about the Flyers, how it was the team he wants to play for. Look, it's something that I think can happen, but even if it doesn't, even if you don't get here sooner rather than later, it's still a great pick.
Absolutely,
it's still a great pick. Hey, we have a bunch of people who want to chat.
Yeah, dude, let's go to some people.
Let's go to some of the folk. We got Phil on finance. The Philly Phil, the Philly Phil 84. He was one of the first people to pop in. Let's throw it to him.
Oh, excellent selection. Thank you guys for having this. How do you think that his possibly coming here in 3 years, how do you think that plays into the rebuild and any kind of plans? Do you think that kind of sets like a target date for them to say, hey, we need to get this rebuilt within 3 years by the time that he comes here so we can start rocking and rolling?
Yeah, it's a good question. And what I'll tell you, Phil, is that, internally, there's a belief that if they get everything right, and of course they got to get things right. I mean, this is not, this is a great pick, but they have to make other decisions that are correct decisions. They have to get the right players in here. But there's a belief that if they get things right, they can be competitive again in 3 years. So you're punting the next 2, right? That they're gonna be really bad next year. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
And then the year after that, probably not much better. But they feel like by year 3, they could be a contender at that point. If Michkov is able to get here before then, I think it definitely accelerates that timeline to get there by year 3. If you have to wait till 3 more seasons in Russia and then he comes over, then maybe it's year 4 that they hit that point. But their belief is they can get there within 3 years. They're not going to say that. They don't want that out publicly, because then if it doesn't happen, they're like, well, you promised us 3 years, da 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 da. But I think that internally that's their mindset, and that's what they're shooting for.
And do you think this is going to kind of change anything for potential trades? Like, do you think this increases a chance of trading TK and decreases the chance of trading Hart or any additional trades?
Yeah, well, so and thanks for the questions. I really appreciate it. So I do think that there's more moves to come. What those moves will be, we'll find out. I do know, for example, they were very pushed. They pushed hard today on Travis Sanheim. Couldn't get anybody to bite on a first-round pick. But do you now adding this player? Do you sit there and go, okay, maybe we go and trade Sanheim for something else? Maybe we get a second-round pick, and maybe we get a 2 and a 3, or maybe we get a 1 next year. Maybe it's still as valuable, or late 1, whatever, something that would be perceived to be a late 1 next year, or a conditional 2 that could potentially be a 1, or something along those lines. And yeah, maybe you can move on from Travis Konechny sooner. I don't think they will. Carter Hart is you got to wait. You just got to wait for the Team Canada report on the rape case in Canada. So That whether he's involved or not, we don't know. But that report isn't going to come out till late July. So you're just going to you got to wait for that. I do think that they will move if they, he's not tied to that. I do think they will move on from Carter Hart because I think Carter Hart can bring you a lot in return. Again, can speed up the process a little bit. The Flyers have players that other teams want and are willing to pay for. So I think that that's a possibility for sure. For sure.
Well, and if you remember, like last year, I think it was when we were talking about like what the team needed to do, and we were all pretty adamant about, tear it down. The thing that we kept coming back to is the best thing you could do if you're the Flyers, the best thing you could do if you're a team that legitimately is trying to rebuild is to draft a player who doesn't come over right away. Because that top end talent, although, there's a chance that he racks up some points if he's not here. So if Michkov isn't here for a year, say, all right, cool. That's one less top end talent that you have to potentially win you a game here and there when you actively are going to want to, accrue as many anti-points as you can, finish towards the bottom as best you can. If he doesn't come over for 2 years, for 3 years, Briere's job is to make sure that this team is as good to go as can be. And to Michkov's point in the quote that you read a little bit ago, he plans on when he gets here that they start winning. So whether that does mean that's in 2 years or in 3 years, I mean, by then you would certainly hope that Danny Briere has been able to build a competent roster that's beyond even being a bubble team, like a team that actually is a piece or two away from, maybe shocking the system a little bit. This is about as perfect of a scenario as you can have. Now, if they have the ability to bring him over right now, you take it without a doubt. But if not, this is totally fine. And that's the one benefit you have to starting over with a new GM and a new president of hockey ops is they're going to have at least 3 years to build this thing and to get it ready for when he comes over now. It very much buys them time, and it also gives them the ability to sell this fan base further on this is a legitimate rebuild that is going to take time. It's like it is an absolute perfect storm, a perfect scenario for this team.
Yeah, Russ, I think that you've got it right. I think that's really what everybody should be most excited about with this is that this couldn't have gone any better. And you're now positioning yourself. Imagine the excitement of wanting to come play with a star caliber player like what he is projecting to be. So down the road, let's finally get to the point. Let's fast forward a little bit and say, okay, the Flyers start to be competitive in 3 years. And then you're looking, 4 summers from now, and you're like, okay, we need to get that last free agent or those last 2 free agents to kind of put us over the top, right? Are you looking at that as a free agent, whoever that may be in that year, and saying, oh man, yeah, I want to go play with Michkov and Gauthier. That's who I want to play with. That's what you do. That's how you attract other players. You aren't going to get Torrey Krug saying, no, I don't want to go play in Philadelphia, because you have players like this that will then be that much more attractive. So I think that all ties in as well. Let's do another fan question, and then you can read some more comments for us.
Sure. By the way, Ant, before you bring this person on, I just wanted to point this one out because this made me laugh. Rob W on YouTube says, I officially updated my Twitter avatar today, removed the brown bag Flyers jersey pick.
There you
I'm
go.
Sure that's going to be music to the ears of the Flyers, I'm sure.
And Flyer Eric, who asked for it to happen on the first call in here to the Twitter space, right? So
yeah, that's right.
So I know Eric's pretty happy about that. Let's throw this one over to Taybone. Taybone, you're good to go. As soon as you're connected here. Just got to unmute.
Taybone.
Hey, what's up, guys?
There you go, man. How you doing?
Good. About you?
Great. Doing great.
So I'm stoked about the pick, but my question, and you guys touched on it a bit already, is about, if there's any precedent or mechanism that we've seen used in the past to get a guy out of a contract in the KHL and get him here earlier, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, I would say every team in the KHL is probably different. I can't speak to what Michkov's team is like over there. But I'm sure that they have a price. I'm sure, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a monetary number. And remember who owns the Flyers. I mean, Comcast has more money than the universe, right? I mean, that's how much money they have. And, maybe you can throw the amount of money to, that team to say, hey, we'll buy out that contract if you let him come over. Or maybe they wanted to play one more year over there before he comes over, right?
Sure.
Maybe
Look, I'm willing to wait 3 years. That's fine. I'm just curious if this has been done before. You know, and I couldn't think of any examples.
So I'm not, nothing's coming straight to mind, but I will say that if my memory of them happening in the past when they have happened were all pre-Russia attacking the Ukraine, right? And so that changes, I think, a lot of the dynamics here. The hockey people aren't allowed into Russia. Russia got mad when the IIHF prevented them from participating in hockey tournaments. So they now say, okay, fine, then none of your people are allowed in.
All right, here I actually have one, Ant.
You got one?
Ivan Miroshchenko from the Capitals agreed to a mutual buyout of his contract with Avangard Omsk in the KHL on May 1st. It was a mutual buyout. He was originally signed through next season, but because of that buyout, he is able and was able to sign a 3-year entry-level contract with the Caps and join their systems. That was back in May. Now, obviously not the same kind of high-profile player as you're getting here with Michkov, but that was recent. That was 2 months ago, month and a half. Yeah, almost 2 months ago. I'll keep looking, but there is at least something.
Yeah, there is a precedent. I mean, there is a precedent. It has happened, but I do think that this one will be looked at a little bit more high profile.
Sure.
And I think it's got to be, the Flyers are going to have to be a little bit more careful about it, so that they make sure that when it happens, it happens. Of course, we could always go back, and I was talking about this on a Twitter space I did yesterday with Anthony DeMarco. If you've never seen it, go back and watch it. There's a great movie out. It's kind of a documentary / movie called The Russian Five. And it was all about how they got the Russians together for the Detroit Red Wings back in the 90s. But part of it was about how they sneaked Sergei Fedorov out of Russia and into the United States. So there's those clandestine ways of doing things too. And it's a great story. Like when you hear the story, you can't believe how much the Red Wings were actually involved in making that happen. There's a lot of craziness that can go on. So there's a lot of things that can happen. Who knows what they are? I just get the sense. Again, it's just no one has said anything to me. I haven't talked to anyone on the Flyers who said, oh yeah, this is what we plan to do. I just get the sense that they will get him over here sooner than the 3 years.
It would be nice.
Right on.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate you chiming in. Hope you're excited about the pick.
I'm very excited. Thanks, guys.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, Tay. So let me do another one here, Russ. And you know what? I'm going to go to somebody who still has a bag over their head, just because. This is at Goated Briere. Let's go to @Goated Briere, who just has a red flag for his name at this point. But let's do it just because he's got the bag on his head. We'll give him a shot here, or her. I think it's a him. Yes.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Kind of, yeah.
All right. So I was just wondering. I don't know if this question was asked, so I apologize. But is anybody worried about the situation, like what happened to his dad? His dad died. And, it's considered mysterious after he was talking about trying to get his son out of his contract early so he can go over to the NHL. The whole Russian thing kind of scares me, based upon, the way his dad died and whether we're going to have another Fedotov situation. So.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I don't want anybody to have their excitement tempered because of the that crazy possibility with Russia. Because you should be excited by this pick, but we do have to recognize that there are real world scenarios that have nothing to do with him playing hockey and have everything to do with just the human element of living in Russia today. So yes, that should always be back of mind. That should be back of mind for everybody. But at the same time, I have a feeling that because of how high profile he personally is, that I can't imagine that it gets to the same level of mystery surrounding his disappearance per se. I can't see something like that happening. Could they try and do what they did with Fedotov? Maybe, but what you saw with Fedotov was high profile enough that he came back from Siberia pretty quick, right? I mean, he wasn't gone that long. He's back playing hockey again, and there's contact with he's able to talk to his agent, right? So I think when you have a player that's high profile, that Russia's not going to do something to really sabotage their own to a degree to prevent him from doing what he does well. Because him being a good player and him being an international star is good for the country. So why would they want to prevent him from being that? They might want their money. They might want to get paid to let it happen, but that doesn't mean that they would want to limit his ability to be recognized on the international stage, if that makes sense.
Right. I get it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
No problem. Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. Hey, Russ, you got more comments from
do I have comments? Come on now. Of course. So we have a bunch of people saying, risk, but certainly worth it. Mike Fradel says Philly's a big market. He'll play here. Michael says, look at the guy. He's a grown man already. This is maybe the comment of the night because I identified with this on a spiritual level, and I'm sure other people did as well. Feeble-minded brother says, anyone else get nervous at 6 before the name was announced and the Coyotes were picking a Russian? And when they started reading off the team, I had a brain fart for a second, and I went, "Oh shit, is this it?" I'm trying to remember where did Michkov play, and I'm like, "Wait a second, no, that's not right." So that was interesting. By the way, the guy that Arizona drafted at 6, many people believe would have been available at 12. So let it to Arizona to flip the draft on its head. But anyway. Draft top 10 the next 2 years and load up for 2026 is also what Feeble-Minded said. So there is certainly a line of thinking to that. I can't imagine that they're going to be they're going to be bad next year. Are they really going to bottom out 2 years in a row? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, anything's possible. Let me keep going here. K215. I haven't been this excited about the Flyers during the summer since the Pronger trade.
Yeah.
Yale Roth asked, how did Michkov slip? And I think a big part of it, and Ant, I don't have in front of me how long each of the executives ahead of the Flyers have been in their positions, but I think that kind of plays into it, at least for some. The 3-year window is really hard to sell unless you're a new executive, especially if your team has been perpetually bad. It's almost impossible to sell ownership on the idea of we're going to sit back and wait 3 more years.
Yeah.
And as a GM trying to save your job, or as a president of hockey ops trying to save your job, you wouldn't have made this pick. And everybody knows that I don't believe Chuck Fletcher was a good GM and president. We all know that. I don't think that Chuck Fletcher would have made this pick. And the reason, and I'm sure that you've heard the same, but there were multiple people within the organization who, around the time Chuck was fired, the word had been going around that Chuck does not want to be in a position where on draft night, Michkov falls to the Flyers.
Yep.
That was, and I cannot stress to people enough how real that concern was. And that wasn't just one person throwing it against the wall. That was a legitimate concern from multiple people in the organization that Chuck was afraid of what would happen if he were in charge of this team and MATVEI Michkov were to fall to the team at wherever they ended up picking, which eventually became 7. And can you imagine if he had still been here and passed?
Yeah.
I
well,
mean,
let's put it.
Fire in the. You know, and actually, let's not even imagine it. We are moving forward.
Yeah.
Because hot damn, it's a great night. I don't even.
One
Somebody
thing-
brought up on Twitter that name, the name of that former president, should become like Voldemort, he who shall not be named. And I think we might have to go there.
You might have to do that. You might have to do that. I just wanted to, because I know somebody had asked earlier. I think you had said it was on YouTube or might have been on Facebook about who the Flyers might be looking at pick 22. That pick is approaching. It's getting closer. Calgary just selected Samuel Honzek, a left wing from Vancouver in the WHL, who I do know was a name that the Flyers did like. But I think that they're going to go defenseman with the second pick. And there's a couple of names that are still out there. There's the Sandin Pellikka, Swedish defenseman, who a lot of people thought might climb up into the top 10. He was one of those names that was rising quickly as the draft approached. He's actually still out there, and we're approaching pick 17, which is Detroit. Another interesting possibility is there's another Russian that's out there, Mikhail Gulyayev, I believe is how it's pronounced, or Gulyayev, who is another defenseman that I had heard his name mentioned as well. Again, there's 6 teams picking between, or 5 now, right? 5 teams picking before the Flyers. So, it's possible both are gone by then. But if one of them's still there, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the direction that the Flyers go. Just kind of throwing that out there.
And can I tell you what my biggest regret in life is?
What's that?
So I speak a bunch of languages, right? We've established this.
Yes.
Spanish, German, Italian, French, right?
Yeah.
French not very well. I took Russian for a little bit in college. I was auditing an intensive Russian class. And it was an 8 a.m. class. And I said, I'm not getting credit for it. I'm just done. What a stupid thing to do. If I had ever known that I was going to eventually cover hockey, what a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember some. I'm going to start brushing up on Russian. And by the time Michkov is here, I'll be interviewing him in Russian.
There you go.
I will promise that now.
There you go.
It's my new goal.
You guys heard it here first, right? You heard Russ say it.
Well, listen, if he's listening right now, see, there we go. I've introduced myself. Allow me to introduce myself. All right, go to the people.
Yes, let's go to another fan. Let's go to Andrew. Andrew, a Rowan grad, and he's a 4for4 Philly sports fan. Andrew, thanks for hopping into the program here tonight. Doing good.
So this is just the most exciting pick that I could have imagined. Leading up to the draft is what I wanted personally, but it just makes so much sense just based on, everything they've said, wanting to get this done a little bit quicker, so on and so forth. I guess, first of all, great talent remaining. You guys brought up the 2 defensemen, but Oliver Moore and Gabe Perreault as well, if they want to go that route. But, what does this tell you about Danny Briere's, I guess, draft style? I think a lot of us expected him to be more aggressive, but it's just such a marked change from the ultra conservative way of thinking it felt like we were under for the past, 5 years or so.
Well, Andrew, I can tell you right now, and then before you go in, one of the comments on YouTube, Ogie points out that apparently, Chuck Fletcher, sorry, he who must not be named, Chuckamort, Fletchermont, is on the Sportsnet coverage, and he claimed on air, on TSN, that he said that Michkov was second on their board when he was let go as president and GM.
Yeah, my ass.
Well, see, but here's the thing, though, Russ. Even if it was, that doesn't necessarily mean he would have taken him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right?
He would have shrunk in the big moment, just like he always does.
I like Andrew. Let's bring Andrew on more often. He speaks my language. This is good.
That's good. Now, see, I forgot your question now because we got
sidetracked
by Russ. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Essentially, what does it tell you about Danny Briere's draft style?
Yeah, it's right. No, I think that what you know about Danny is he's going to be. So here's what you should remember when he was a player here. Danny Briere was a fierce competitor as a player. He had to be. He was told for his entire, life that he was too small to play the sport. And so he had to play at, another level. He had to be he had to have the mental game to really be able to be the player that he was. And so as fierce as a competitor as he was on the ice, you have to know that he's going to be that competitive as well once he gets into a management position. So when the time comes and you see the best player that's available in the draft is still there, even if there are concerns about getting him out of a contract that he's in, Danny Briere is going to go for it. He's going to be like, you know what? That's the best player, and I'll figure out a way. I'll find a way to get him here sooner. But that's the best player, hands down, and there's no reason for us to even question it. You don't overthink it. And I think there were a few teams who picked before the Flyers who overthought their picks. I thought Anaheim, in all honesty, and they got a really good player in Leo Carlson. I'm not going to knock him. I mean, I think he's going to be a really talented player. But I think Adam Fantilli is going to be better. And so I think that they kind of overthought that one a little bit. I think Montreal overthought it a little bit because teams were willing to trade with them to get to number 5. Not necessarily to draft Reinbacher, but they were willing to move into that spot. Would Reinbacher have been available later on? Arizona absolutely could have traded back and gotten the Shimashev and been okay. So like all those teams were overthink. Danny Briere didn't overthink. Danny Briere said, this guy's the best player that's out there. We know next to Bedard. We know we're not getting Bedard. This guy in our mind is the next best player. And there are a lot of scouts who think that he's the second best player in this draft. And he said, why even think about it? Why even worry about it? Why debate it? We're going to go get that player. And they went and did it. And that's the kind of guy he is. And so you should be excited that he's that kind of general manager because that's how he's going to approach everything that he does, whether it's a trade or signing a free agent or drafting a player. That's what he's going to do. Now, is he going to get everyone right? Probably not, right? I mean, nobody's that good. Nobody's going to get them all right. But I'd rather have a guy who's willing to take a chance to make the team better than tend to take that conservative approach and say, we'll just go with a sure. We know this guy's going to play in the NHL, but we don't know how, just how high his ceiling is. No. Go for the gold, go for gusto. And that's how Danny Briere approaches it.
Hey, and by the way, over on YouTube, there's a really beautiful moment that happened that the Twitter folks can't see. But there was somebody over there named Jay Marks who was a little bit down, a little bit worried about, will he ever play here? And it sucks to have to wait 3 years and all that. And longtime listener of the show, Tim Tobin, within 2 or 3 messages, has converted Jay Marks. And Jay Marks came back and said, we'll get back to being a competitive team. If Michkov does come here, that speeds up the process a great deal. I hope we see him in orange and black soon. I mean, we saw a real life conversion over on the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel. I just wanted to point that out for people. Jen Calliser over on YouTube asks, dumb question, but are there any protections in place to be sure that there isn't another Fedotov situation? Which I'm guessing is in reference to the military service thing that is what was held against Fedotov. Like I don't know. Do we know what any of these guys' status is?
Here's what I would say to that, Russ. Here's what I would say to that. I'm certain that they did their due diligence to identify whether or not that would be a hindrance, and if they felt that there was a possible hindrance, they probably wouldn't have made the pick. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it's. I think it's yes. Is there a gamble? Is there a risk? Because if he does have to play those 3 years in the KHL before he comes over, okay, fine. Is there a risk that something happens over there, that he gets hurt or something, and he's not under your control, and you're not developing him. He's playing in another country for another organization, right? I mean, so of course those concerns are there. That's the risk. I don't think that they would have taken such a gamble if they weren't confident that he would eventually be here I think sometime in the next 3 to 4 years.
I want to see if this is accurate or not. Give me 5 seconds because I just saw the funniest comment there, and I want to make sure that this is legit before I read it on air. Let me see. Yep, it totally is. So, Mr. Dubizzle noted that Sam Hinkie tweeted out a GIF of Gritty when the pick was made. A very clear indication, a process, if you will. Someone else noted that this is akin to taking Dario Saric. Obviously, the difference is that Michkov is legitimately an elite top-end talent. We all loved Dario tremendously, but he was not that guy. But the Hinkie GIF of Gritty at the same time. Gotta love that. That's a good crossover for the Flyers and Sixers fans among us. By the way, there are more than 70 comments on the Twitter space itself that we might want to get to as well. So we'll read a few of those off after we go to the next person.
Okay. Let's go to Boomer. What's up, Boomer? Boomer Hunter, I believe it is. Just trying to connect. Boomer, are you there? Going once, going twice, and not answering. So we'll put him back.
Okay, Boomer. DMako215 tweets at us. Montreal always helps us, by the way. They gift wrapped us Leclerc and Desjardins. They cleared the path for us to get the cup in get to the cup in 2010, and now they've given us a Michkov.
Nice.
That's a good point. Or who are you going to next, Dan?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me something else. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I mean I can. I didn't want to throw off.
Okay, no. That's fine. Let's go to Moose 82. Moose 82, who's got a great avatar of he who should not be named in clown makeup.
Hey, how you doing, man? How you doing, Russ?
Hey.
I just want to know, man, I'm a Delco-ite, so long time reader of your stuff in the Delco slime back in the day. Big fan.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, us Delco boys, we got to stick together.
Dude, that's right. It's a lifestyle, not a choice. But quick question for you: have you read? I literally just saw this article today after he was drafted. This whole story about his father, whose body was found after he left the house, like in April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery around it. I don't know the details specifically, so like I feel weird like talking specifics about it. But yeah, it was his dad. His dad did pass away with mysterious causes or in a mysterious manner. I have a feeling that we'll hear more and more about that as time goes on. And I think that's why it was important for him to say what he said.
Yeah.
When he said that his goal is to finish what his dad started for him.
Yeah.
And that was winning the Stanley Cup.
I mean, like from what I'm reading, obviously you can't really, you have to watch what you read because it's coming from Russia, but it says, apparently his father was trying to invalidate his contract. And he wanted him to come over here quicker. I mean, that's some shady, that's some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
The one thing that's going to be interesting about this is in 2022, the NHL and KHL agreed to suspend their agreement that let teams buy out the player. So, and that example I gave you from May was a mutual termination of a contract between the player and the team. Was it Avangard in the KHL?
Yeah.
Assuming that is going to remain in place, that would mean that the Flyers will be unable to buy him out of the contract. Now, can the Flyers perhaps find a sponsorship through Comcast to funnel some of that money to buy out the contract? I don't know how that'll work. Maybe Michael Rubin gets involved. Maybe we see Michkov, selling Fanatics merch on the corner. But whatever it takes, there are very well-off people. But that is one level to that whole concept of buying him out, is that the Flyers are not allowed to buy him out. If he can provide his own funds, the precedent was set a month and a half ago by that player in Washington to be able to come to a mutual term. So I don't know what that's going to look like, Ant. It might complicate things, but again, there are well-to-do corporations and folks on this side of the pond that might be able to figure it out.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I know from firsthand experience, Comcast has taken enough money from me; they could probably swim him over. So,
let me ask you: are you willing to get an extra cable box in like a spare bedroom for the next 10 years?
I will call Comcast today and put 5 more boxes into my house right now. I'm like I was literally upstairs when the pick came in, and I watched it on my phone. And I was jumping so loud, my daughter thought I came running upstairs, thought I was having a heart attack. But I'm like, I'm excited. I just, I read that article and I'm thinking, that's crazy. Like his dad just goes out, leaves, doesn't come back, and then it all comes out. He was like trying to invalidate the contract, and
we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Listen, I don't want to speculate on it much. I don't want Ant to either, because we don't need Ant to, be found face down in a plate of roast beef and gravy.
No.
So,
No.
Yeah.
So good.
At Nick, right? That's where it'll be. At Nick's roast beef.
That's
Hey,
right.
Moose, thanks for the call, bud.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Russ.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Russ, there's somebody we got to go to next.
Okay.
One of your good friends. One of your favorite fellow hockey talkers is
I love hockey talkers.
Has asked to join us for the moment. Let's throw it over to Jason Martinez. What's up, pal?
Jason Martinez, you're on 97.5. Now go ahead, Jason. 610-632.
Mert, what's going on, brother? You got to unmute. I know you're an older guy, and you got to, sometimes figure out
first time, long time. How do, friends?
a little Steve-O there. A little Steve-O.
I've never done a Twitter space, but I figured I had to jump on. I saw you guys were on. I've been listening for a little bit, but it's a rare occasion. There's like an orange moon tonight because Russ and I agree on something.
Holy shit.
Yep.
I'm gonna mark the time
Yes.
here. We're gonna make a clip of this on TikTok. I can't believe that. All right, go ahead.
No, I love the pick, and I think you do as well. And it took, I think there's a lot of balls to this, but I think the big element of the pick is that it shows the commitment to a rebuild the right way, because it's not something that's going to yield dividends in the building or put butts in the seats this year. It's about the long play. And they potentially got the second best, most dynamic talent in this draft with Michkov.
Yeah. No, you're right, Jay. I mean, that's what it is. And that's the thing I can't get past. And I think that people can't lose sight of. He got picked at number 7. And there were some great players taken before him. And this is no disrespect to Leo Carlson or Adam Fantilli or Will Smith. But he would, if this was any other year and stuff wasn't going on in Russia that's going on right now, MATVEI Michkov would be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Well, he probably wouldn't have been over Bedard, but yeah.
No, I said any other year.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, any other year. Obviously not Bedard. Bedard would be 1. And he would be 2 this year if there was no run. But any other year, he would be the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And he got picked at 7 by the Flyers.
Anthony, if he was born in North America, he would have been the 2nd pick in this draft.
Yes.
The fact that
if he was born anywhere but Russia.
Yeah, he could have been born in Belarus. He would have been the 2nd pick.
Yeah.
But I love the pick, and I know I feel like Danny manipulated the situation and Jonesy very well, because I think they put a lot of smoke screens out there about Ryan Leonard. I think they liked Ryan Leonard, and they would have been happy picking him if Michkov wasn't there.
Yeah, I think that I'll be honest with you, Jay. I think they were a little bit surprised that neither Montreal nor Arizona traded down.
Yeah.
I think that that's what they thought was going to happen, and that Michkov would have gone there. And what ended up happening is that those teams fell too much in love with the guy that they wanted to draft and decided not to trade the pick.
Yeah.
And Michkov just keeps falling. And they read the room right. And that's credit to them. credit to the team. And, Danny talking to everybody. I'm sure Alan McCauley talked to 6 million people, right? Keith Jones, whoever. I'm sure that they all talked to a lot of teams and really were able to piece together the puzzle that they weren't going to trade those picks and nobody was going to take Michkov. So they just said, you know what? We're good. We'll stay where we're at and we'll be able to get the guy.
And I know Brent Flair discussed that, they met with him a couple of times. Was one of those times when the training center was closed a week ago?
That's a good question.
Could have been. Yeah, would have made sense.
That was out of nowhere. All events canceled, and you're going, wow, that's weird, right? Then it kind of just faded away because, we don't think of things like that. But, the other part of it, too, is, I almost shit my pants when, Chimashev went because I'm going, oh, there he goes. He's gone, right?
Yeah, you heard the Russian team name, right? Like, did you had like a brain fart where you're like, oh shit, what team does he actually play for?
As soon as I heard out of the Continental Hockey League, I was in mid dump.
You prairie dogged it?
Well, I'm at the shore. I'm sitting on the front porch and I'm like chilling, and I'm just freaking out. But I'm very happy with the pick, and I'm very happy. Really, for the biggest element of this is that Russ and I are on the same page on something. So maybe this can begin anew.
That's a really, you know what? I think that tonight marks a new era of Orange, where we might actually see eye to eye on some things. That's what Danny Briere has done.
He's a bridge builder.
With this pick. He is. It's fantastic.
Hey guys, I'm enjoying the conversation. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but thanks for having me on. Keep it going. Exciting night for sure. We'll see what else happens, whether it's Sanheim or Lawton or 22. What's going to be there? So I appreciate it. Be well, boys.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
I have to do something here that we've never done before.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited to get to do this.
Yeah.
As some people might have seen, and this is something that we're going to talk about on tomorrow's live show on YouTube, which we're going to do probably, I think tomorrow. It's either going to be tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. We always tell people, make sure you go over to the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel and subscribe there and hit the bell so that you know whenever we go up. Sometimes we announce it ahead of time. Sometimes we give you like an hour's notice. When we come up with a time, Ant and I and Bundy tonight hopefully are going to iron one out. Bundy's up north, so he might be on, he might not. But one of the things that we've done on the YouTube channel is we have never in the history of the show asked anyone for a dime. We've never asked listeners for a dime. We don't intend on doing that. For the most part, with the exception of a brewery, I think in year 2 of the show, a very short time that we ran something with FanDuel, we have avoided putting ads on any of our shows. It's not because we couldn't get sponsors. It's because we said it has to be worth the money if we're going to take airtime to do that. And now at some point we might, and we're thinking about doing some pretty big things here in the fall. And at some point we might run an ad or two that's a conversation like we used to do on 610 when we did the radio show. But on the YouTube channel, there's now a feature for those who are interested. And again, we're not, this is the only time I plan on bringing this up today. But we now have super chats, and super chats over on YouTube are whenever somebody wants to jump the line. And there are a ton of questions, a ton of comments, a ton of concerns that have been levied on YouTube. You can go over and you can leave a super chat. What a super chat is essentially a tip. It's essentially you're giving $1 or 50 cents, or in the case of _ Ted, $4.99, a $4.99 super chat. So we're gonna jump here. We are going to be shills here because Ted went and put in a super chat. We're gonna let him jump the line here on questions. And before we get back to the Twitter space here, so big thank you to _ Ted for being the first super chat we've ever had on the show. But Ted says, super happy with Michkov. Question for Ant: do we need to get rid of Sanheim before the draft ends tomorrow, or are we stuck with his contract? Thanks for the live show.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think that you probably do have to move him before. Look, you don't have to move him before the draft is over, per se, but you have to move him before Saturday. Because Saturday is when his no trade clause comes into play. He's got it for the first 4 years of his 8-year contract. So that's important. If you're going to move him, you need to move him before Saturday. They wanted to move him for this draft because it's considered a deeper draft than 2024. But maybe what ends up happening is you trade him for a draft pick in 2024 instead, and you do that before Saturday. Possibly. Again, I'm not saying anything that I'm being told. I know that they tried really hard to move him for a late first-round pick today, and it did not happen. I mean, I guess it still could in the next half hour, 45 minutes. But in lieu of that, unless you're willing to take less, maybe a second pick later on, then the goal is to go to the 2024 draft.
There's actually I think there might be reason at this point, Ant, to try to punt on this until next year. I mean, we know that the 2024 draft isn't being viewed quite as positively in terms of the depth, but you never know, right? I mean, if there's no protection on a pick, you're a few injuries away from a team that thinks they're loading up, on a postseason team, right? There's always the chance that they fall. And we're shilling here now apparently. Ted has another super chat, so we're gonna go to that really quick, and then we'll go to some of the. We actually have two more super chats. I don't know what to do here. I'm kind of blown away. _ Ted with a $4.99 super chat. Thanks, Ted. Do you think or know Danny has the authority to trade who he wants without Torts throwing a fit? Is Danny allowed to move Lawton, TK, or whoever are considered Torts guys?
Yes, the answer to that is yes, but I think that the team is valuing them a little bit more than maybe teams are willing to pay for them. So if the price tag is met, then yeah. I mean, teams have been asking about them, and I think that that's a possibility. Now, one thing that is not considered when you think about Lawton is how much they value him as a team leader and his contributions to the organization off the ice. Never mind what he does on the ice, where he's a solid, very solid player, very good player.
Yeah.
And I think that is why his value is so much higher, and not just because John Tortorella really likes him. I think so that's part of it. And Russ, I mean, you could confirm for this. I mean, if you go back, I don't know, 5 podcast episodes ago, I mentioned his name just kind of in passing, and you gave me the old big eyes, like, hey, what did you say? And it was me just throwing it out there because I had heard that they would consider it. And so it's not like they won't do it. But the other teams have to meet a price tag, or else they're going to hold on to those players. So it's not that Torts has too much control by saying those are the players he wants to keep. It's that the Flyers would move them, but they have to reach a certain plateau to do so.
Makes sense. And real quick before we go to the next person, we have one more super chat that we're going to get to on the YouTube stream of the Twitter space. What a fun thing we're doing here. DMako1, $5 super chat. Thanks, DMako1. Not a question, just showing my appreciation for what you guys do. Cheers.
Thanks, Dave.
Here's to you, DMako.
Yeah, it's David Mako. He's been one of our long time.
Jesus. We just got done reading that one. And Ant, I don't know. I almost feel like we're doing that NPR like public drive or WRTI, where they get to that point of the year and they say, "Well, welcome to the music that you are listening to is crowd supported WRTI." And they do like their little drive.
Was that Morgan Freeman doing the voiceover?
Well, Anthony, we are here on the Philadelphia Flyers, are mere picks away from number 22. Your $5 super chat can help bring MATVEI Michkov over to the Philadelphia Flyers in sooner than 3 years. Your $100 contribution will not go to Comcast or the Flyers or Michkov. It'll go to buying Anthony some roast beef sandwiches. and perhaps some crumbs for Russ. Last one here, and another $5 super chat from Rob Ski. I think it was nice of Arizona to have all their season ticket holders on stage tonight.
You know what the most ridiculous thing was? That they were all wearing the same suit. Like, that was ridiculous.
Dude, they were wearing the same suit, but did you see that Michkov's suit kind of matched theirs?
It did. It was like, it was a little bit different because he had the black collars, right?
Yeah,
on his jacket.
But it was kind of that maroon color.
Yes, it was. It was the maroon color.
But anyway, big thank you over there to Robski. All right, for now, the super chats we've now hit on all four of the super chats.
Let's go to another.
Big thank you. Let's go to the Twitter speakers.
Yeah, we got George Harold Harry Calhoun. It's been hanging for a while. Let's go to him as we're approaching pick 22, guys. There's only two more picks and then the Flyers. So,
hey guys, can you hear me?
Hey George.
Yeah.
Hey.
Or Harry.
Yeah, Harry works. George or Harry, either. Hey, thanks for letting me on. Super excited about the pick. It feels like Lindros when I was a kid when we made that trade. Just two quick questions. So do we have any idea what Washington was actually trying to offer to jump up in the draft? Have there been any rumors about what they were trying to put together? And then just wanted to comment, I think it's been commented already, but how stupid is Arizona for picking two Russians at 6 and 12 and neither one being Michkov? Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.
Appreciate you checking in. So no, I don't know what Washington was offering. I had not heard. All that we did know is that there was a lot of talk that they wanted to move up ahead of the Flyers. And again, all along, the Flyers were trying to get that third first-round pick because they felt like they were going to have to utilize that to move up in a trade to go get Michkov because they really believed that it was going to be at pick 5 or pick 6, more so 5. I mean, everybody, we talked about it on the podcast before, Russ, that Montreal pick was the spot that anybody who wanted Michkov wanted to get into, and why the Canadians decided not to do it. You would have to ask them. I mean, but I know that there were several offers that were on Kent Hughes's table, and he chose not to take any of them and drafted Reinbacher, who could be an excellent defenseman for them for years to come. But I just wonder if it was the Flyers, do you fall to 7 and still be able to take him? Maybe Arizona would have taken Reinbacher instead of Simashev, right? Maybe they would have gone in that direction, and maybe that's why Montreal didn't want to do it. Who knows? But the reality is that they hold on to the pick and take a different player than I think a lot of people expected. And then you kind of knew Arizona wasn't going to draft Michkov, but they could have easily traded down too. And I'm stunned that they didn't. So I just think that it's just questionable management of a couple of teams that aren't very good, and one of them who's never not been good for forever. And it makes you wonder, well, maybe is this why they're never good? Because that's what happens. Anyway, that's so I don't know what Montreal or Washington was offering, but it obviously wasn't enough to move up.
Yeah.
What was the second question? I forget what the second question is.
I didn't catch it. I was trying to aggregate some of our questions over here.
Yeah, no, I apologize for not knowing. All right, let's go to another. Minnesota's on the clock, and then the Flyers. Let's get one more comment in before the pick, and then we'll see what happens with the pick. So let's go to Damian Romaine. You're with us here on our Twitter space, following the Flyers selection of Matvei Michkov with pick number 7. What are your thoughts?
Hey guys, it's interesting. I'm 30, so the last decade or so has been pretty brutal in Flyers land. But it's interesting. I think, you hear a lot of people talk about wanting to get out of the old boys club and kind of the tendencies the Flyers have had historically. But the last, 7 to 8 years, really since Snyder passed, have felt kind of cold, soulless, and hopeless for a lot of it. And I would say the last month has probably been the most optimism and excitement that I have felt in a very long time for this franchise, probably since the Cup run in 2010, to be honest. And it feels like we're getting back to the early 2000s, late 90s level of excitement where, we're building something in a very family-oriented manner with folks that know the organization. Even Hilferty, he's got no ties to the organization, but he is local and he seems to be really invested in the success and building it the right way. So I don't know, that could just be me with blinders on, but the optimism and the excitement is the highest that I've had in quite some time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because I think now it's safe to say, and I hope that some of the hundreds of people that we've had listening in are now understanding that this isn't the same old Flyers, right? I mean, we try to explain this when the hires were made, when Keith Jones and Danny Briere, when they had the big press conference. And Russ has talked about this as well, where he said, they talked about the definition of this new slogan, right? The new era of orange, that it was meant to embrace the history and the past of this team, but do it with an eye on how to be successful in a newer era of hockey. And so that's what we were trying to explain to everybody, that these guys are not the last generation of Flyers leaders. This group is a new generation of Flyers leaders who have some of the same principles as the old generation, but are going to operate from a hockey business side of things in a completely different manner. And that's what they are doing. And I think that when you look at the Provorov trade, and you look at what almost was the trade with St. Louis, it was still a very creative trade, even though it didn't come to fruition because of Torrey Krug not being willing to waive his no trade clause. And you look at the willingness to draft a player that some other teams were afraid to draft, that's going to probably be a home run for them. That's a different approach than they've ever had before. And it's bold. And the Flyers of old were bold, but they were bold with Ed Snyder's money. They weren't bold with thinking, right? They weren't bold with an approach. This is a bold approach that Danny Briere, Keith Jones, Alan McCauley, and the rest of the front office staff, and then of course spearheaded by Dan Hilferty as the lead guy, has undertaken and are trying to execute. And I think that everybody needs to recognize now that this is not the same old Flyers.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I have had to kind of fight with some people that I was kind of surprised that we had to talk to about it. Some that we happen to work with at the site about same old Flyers, because you look at it and you say, oh, Keith Jones was a Flyer, and Patrick Sharp, who's brought in, was very shortly a Flyer, and John LeClaire, a Flyer, and Danny Briere, a Flyer. And there are people who have just outright dismissed any of their ability or their qualification. And I think if there was one place that you could have maybe tried to make an argument that the Briere hire was, maybe questionable, is that, he was here under Chuck Fletcher. I'm sorry, under Chuckamont. How are we making him Voldemort? I don't know what kind of name. I need people in the comments, wherever. It could be on Twitter, it could be on Facebook, it could be on YouTube. We need a name, a Voldemort name for Chuck. I don't know what it's going to be yet. There are some very inappropriate names that people have DM'd me about Chuck, dropping the H, for example, but I digress. The big thing is Briere has proven that he's not just a yes man, or that he wasn't just a yes man who didn't have any different views on things. He's been aggressive. This is a move that I think you would have been hard pressed to have found that predecessor make. I don't know if Hextall would have made this pick. There are certainly other executives in this league who would not make the pick. Hence, he fell to number 7. And I want to propose one idea to you really quickly. And the Flyers are on the clock. I'm going to be on probably the worst delay with YouTube TV. I see 2 minutes and 41 seconds on the clock. Is there a possibility? Again, we knew that Washington was interested in jumping the Flyers. Is there a possibility that Washington thought that Michkov would communicate to the Flyers that he was not interested in playing for them because the Caps would be next and because there's that connection to Ovechkin? Is there a chance that there was something at hand with that? Or could it really have been that Washington could not sweeten the pot enough to jump ahead of the Flyers into that spot where Arizona sat? It just seems inconceivable to me that they had the ability and they had the capital and they had some assets that could have moved them up. Like, why would Washington not have made that move for Michkov? Like, something to me feels amiss. It just doesn't add up.
Again, maybe Washington didn't have what it took to get there for those teams. I mean, that's, to me, that's what I think it comes down to. You know, you gotta always say you gotta have two partners, right? To make a deal. You might like something so much and think you can do it and think you can get there, but if the other team doesn't want to do it, then they're not going to do it, right? So yeah, I mean, look, it works out for the Flyers because of that, and that's good. That's a good thing. So I mean, I don't know. I think that it's not, hey, it's water under the bridge at this point. They had a chance to do it. Montreal and Arizona wouldn't bite, and the Flyers were like, okay, well, we're just gonna stay put and get what we want, and that's it, and that's all. Yeah. That's all there was to it. So,
and now that the Flyers are on the clock, let's just take a look really quick. We can make predictions here of who they might look to draft at number 22. It seems like the people who are on YouTube right now, also some people tweeting at us, think that it's going to be is it Perreault?
Yeah, Gabriel Perreault.
Not Ross Perreault.
No.
That he's a talent that you just can't pass up on. Your thoughts?
I mean, you can, but it's another right wing. So it could well be the same guy. The same kind of guy that you already have. And so that's why I think that they might go to another position. I could be wrong. I mean, I could absolutely be wrong. It was harder to kind of get a sense of where their head was with 22 because you just don't know how the draft's going to play out in front of them. And obviously you don't know if you're going to get, Michkov or not. So you don't know what you're taking with that first pick. So a lot of that can kind of be dictated, a lot of that can help you dictate, what's going to happen. I know that they like another defenseman. Oliver Bonk is another guy that they liked. So that's a possibility too. So we'll see. I just think defense is the place that they're going to go.
Gulyayev is the best defenseman.
That's according to Megan Shaika.
Well, I was going to say on the ESPN telecast. That's who they have as the best defenseman.
And it looks like they took Oliver Bonk. So there you go.
Did they?
Yes. You're a little bit behind there, Russell.
I am behind. That's the YouTube TV difference, baby. So
yeah.
Can you give people an idea about Bonk?
I know his dad was Radek Bonk.
In the OHL.
Yeah, his father played in the NHL, Radek Bonk.
Okay.
So that's all I can tell you. I don't know anything. He plays for. He's from London of the OHL. So I mean that's all I can really tell you about him. But
and I might go pay a designer right now to come over with a shirt for us to sell over at snowthegoalie.com. Just bonk. Yeah.
Just bonk.
Bonk. Yeah. Just like have a defenseman, like have a silhouette of a big defenseman laying the lumber.
Yeah.
Bonk. I love
bonk.
It.
Yep. Absolutely.
If anybody steals that idea, it has been officially broadcasted on Twitter, Facebook, and the other one, YouTube as well. So we got that. Right, we at least have a 72-hour lead on that. Go to some people who are excited
let's just do a couple more because at this point it's probably we've seen the two picks. I don't have a lot to give you on Oliver Bonk. I mean, so it's not like I'm going to sit here and be able to give you like a breakdown of his game. I do know he comes from a very well-run organization in London, right? I mean, a lot of players come out of London and do well in the NHL. He's got a little bit of size. He's 6'2". And he's got a pedigree. So that much I can tell you. But I don't think that there's much more to kind of offer on him for now. I'm sure we'll get more details as the night goes on or the couple days go on ahead. But let's get a couple more comments and then we'll wrap this up.
And let's agree that anybody you call on, we have to say bonk.
Bonk. Okay, let's go to Dargs. Dargs has been waiting. Let's go to Dargs. How's it going, Dargs? Got to unmute. There you go. You there, Dargs? Oh, he muted himself.
I'm here.
There we go.
There you go. Go ahead, bud.
So, long time, first time. Love you guys.
I love that line, man. It's the best.
Just curious about second round pick. Do you guys think we have any chance about Tipita?
I couldn't tell you. I'm gonna be very, very honest with everyone here. Okay. I hear when it comes to the draft, I do a little research for the picks that are going to be at the top of the draft and your first pick in the first round. Kind of try and get a sense of who those players might be or who's out there. And then beyond that, I know very little. I don't sit around watching junior games and games out of Europe. And as a matter of fact, GMs will tell you that after the first round, they tend to turn it over to their scouts anyway, because a lot of times they haven't even seen the kids play that they're drafting. So if there's somebody there that you like, and you want to say something about them, by all means, tell us why you like them, and we'll make a note of it. And if they have a chance to get that player, then awesome. We'll see where it goes. But beyond that, I would be talking out my ass if I was trying to tell you I knew anything about
I respect it. I respect it. And then one last thing: if you were a sales guy for Comcast Spectre and you had the cold call Flyers fans and say, "Hey, buy season tickets," what's your one go-to to tell people, let's get in the stands? Or is there one?
Well, I mean, so that's a great question, and I appreciate it. And Russ, you know what? I'm going to let you answer that one first, because I know what I would say, but I want to hear what your thought is on that first. How would you sell season tickets now after today?
Well, it's going to be hard, right? We know that. But the one thing that you can sell people on is there is a clear and cohesive vision of where things are heading. And I don't know I have to imagine, Ant, and I could be wrong. I don't know how the business side is going to handle this. I would certainly, and it's not my money, but I would certainly look at trying to offer plans that lock people in for the next 2 or 3 years at a discounted rate. Like if you're gonna go through with getting a season ticket for this upcoming season, which is not going to be a tremendous season, then we're going to give you a discount on year 2 and 3. And at some point, maybe you're going to end up benefiting in the long run. When Michkov comes over, you'll be there at a discounted rate. Thanks for being loyal. I don't know. I really don't know. The thing that I think they're going to have to do is they're going to have to be honest. Like everybody knows that this team is not going to be a playoff contender next year, even with Tortorella as the coach. And we always talk about, you raise the floor a little bit too high. The one thing that you're going to be able to sell the fan base on is there are going to be a lot of young players getting time. There are going to be a lot of players funneling in and out of, from the Phantoms. You're going to see a young, vibrant team, a team that's going to bust their ass every game, a team that's going to be coached hard, that's going to play hard. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the team work out more nights where you're seeing discounted rates on tickets or things that are more geared to, affordable tickets, getting the families out and going about it that way. It's going to be a hard sell. But I think that you have to go with it in terms of just the vision of where this thing is. They'll probably try to market around, a Couturier returning. If Konechny's here, they're probably going to do some video and, some content that's going to be based on him because, he's a funny personality. You could try to build, advertising campaigns around those guys. maybe you highlight an Owen Tippett, who was, kind of a breakout player, a breakout young player for this team last year. Aside from that, Ant, I don't know. Because if they are to deal Carter Hart, which is a very big if, again, it all comes down to the Hockey Canada investigation and what comes of that. If Carter Hart is traded, there goes one of your potential players to market around. If that happens, I will have a beverage or say a prayer for the marketing team, because it's going to make it that much harder. But that's what I would do. You're selling this idea of it's a young team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a fast team that's going to be exciting to watch and to go see in person. And if you need to, you can try to sell the notion of Couturier, Konechny, probably Atkinson, and maybe Hart.
I'll tell you, you did what the Anaheim Ducks, Montreal Canadiens, and Arizona Coyotes did tonight. You overthought it. You overthought it.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's all you have to do. It's like you got to talk about this kid that you drafted today. Bless you, Maria. Maria was sneezing in the back.
Maria making an appearance. Hey there,
Maria made an appearance on the broadcast.
You. Salute.
Yeah. But you definitely talk about Michkov, but you do it in this way. And again, we don't know when he's coming over, so let's assume it's not this season, all right? So assuming it's down the road, what you do is you talk about, hey, this is the time to get in with the Flyers. We just drafted what will be someone who is going to be a generational talent. This team is going to be very good in a shorter period of time than maybe you even thought. And come and watch the kids who are going to be a big part of that once we have MATVEI Michkov. Come and grow with them and watch them develop into the championship caliber team that we think we're going to have in a couple of seasons. That's all you have to do. You don't have to center it around the players on your team. You don't have to talk about Owen Tippett. You don't have to talk about, anything else. You're going to sit there and say, we got Cutter Gauthier last year. We've got MATVEI Michkov this year. And we're going to be a really good team in a couple of years. Don't wait, because by the time that comes around, these tickets aren't going to be there. Get them now, grow with the team, and have your excitement build as we get closer and closer to being a championship contender. That's all you have to say.
I like that. That's pretty good.
Thanks. Hey, Russ, let's do one more, and then I want to wrap it up because
we're doing a show tomorrow.
Yes, we have more to do tomorrow. So let's get one more. I'm going to throw it to Jay Toxic 49. Jay Toxic 49 has been sitting around waiting. How's it going, Jay? You there? Unmute. Hit that little microphone button.
I got it, Phil. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Second time, short time, Russ. So
that's right.
First of all, you guys are both overthinking the season ticket holder thing. Every new season ticket holder, this is the pitch. Torts will yell at you that you're fucking dogging it for 20 minutes straight. There's the hook. Guys.
Perfect. That should be one of the season ticket holder perks. If you sign up season tickets, you have those little sign up for one of these. Sit on the bench for pregame skate, ride the Zamboni, have Torts yell at you for 20 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Or it's in the Zamboni, Torts benches you for 3 games.
No, you know what? Now, in honor of the other Voldemort, he rips the A off your sweater.
There you go. There you go. Good.
Yeah, it's all about Torts, guys. My first comment, and I posted it on YouTube and in this one was, as far as Michkov goes, in his introductory press conference, which reporter asks him first about his dad, and why is it going to be Cardici or Selski?
Nah, you know what? Marcus Hayes is a dark horse on that.
Okay.
You know what though? I'll tell you. I'm going to give you a little story here. There was so when the Flyers drafted Steve Downey. You remember Steve Downey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Downey had a similar situation. Well, not similar, but his dad died actually driving him to hockey practice. The car slid on the ice. and there was an accident and his dad died. And back in the day, we were there at that draft. It was actually, I believe that was the Crosby draft, if I'm not mistaken. And it was in Ottawa. And Chuck Gormley, who used to write for the Courier Post in New Jersey, asked him about just a very generic question about his dad. And Steve Downey gave us one of the great, touching stories, which you would never expect because the kind of player that he was, right? Yeah. You would never expect that from him. And it was just awesome. And I sat there and said, it was a simple question. It didn't dive into specifics. It was just, what would this have meant to your dad? And he gave us this great story. And it was awesome. And it was just I was standing there next to Chuck, I don't even need to ask a question because you asked one question and it wrote our stories for us. And so I think it can be asked in an appropriate manner. Do I have 100% confidence that it will be? I don't. Now, to be fair, Sam has retired from covering the Flyers because he is working on putting together a TV show that is based on the Broad Street Bullies. He's working on pitching that, and good luck to Sam, and hope that happens. I think Mike Sealski, if he's there, is the kind of guy who can ask it appropriately. I think Charlie O'Connor would ask it appropriately. But I'm not.
There's no fucking way to ask that.
No, there is. There is a way to ask.
Don't even bother. There is no reason to ask about it at an introductory press conference for the kid. Holy shit! What are we talking about here? That's insane.
I'm certain that they have already asked him. I'm certain they asked him in Nashville tonight. I'm sure they.
Yeah,
did.
it was kind of a joke, guys, but.
But you know what?
No, I know. And I was laughing with you for a second, and that's why I told that story though, because I wanted to understand. Even yes, it was very funny, the way you were saying, and of course you picked the right people, right? That's the joke of it, right? That was the joke that you were going for. Yeah, but there is in the serious side of it is it's a worthwhile story. If we all wrote that, don't you think people would want to read it?
Absolutely.
I do.
I didn't even know about it until tonight. And I've been following it fairly closely, but the big thing is that I love the pick. I love that Phoenix, just with no foresight whatsoever, with no arena, with the idea that Austin Matthews is eventually going to get there. At some point, don't give him like a grade A talent to play with in a couple of years. To sweeten the pot a little bit. But enough about Arizona. They suck. They always will suck. When they go to Houston, they're going to suck. Whatever. But no, I love the pick and I love what they're doing. And listen, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a stretch to get some asses in the seats, until they really rebuild and have something. But I like what they're doing. It's better. And like you guys just said, it's better than the old style of how they used to do it.
Yeah, I mean the one thing that I can look at here, and as we kind of look to wrap this, and thank you, Jay Toxic. That was a very nice call. I think it's an easier sell. I know that in the moment, fans and media, obviously, because you go down there and you cover games, and we are never going to be the people who openly complain about how hard it is to cover a team. I mean, you go down and do it far more often than I do. I mean, at least last year, right? And you go down to practices far more often than I do. You're closer, but the people who complain about how hard it is to cover a team, right? That's always kind of silly to me. But there is something about the emotional drain of, oh my God, I gotta get in the car, I gotta drive however long. In my case, an hour and a half, depending on traffic. In your case, not as long, but still, you get in the car, you drive to these home games 41 times a year, and you try to rationalize to yourself, I'm going down there, I'm dedicating my night to this, I'm going to get down there at 4:00, and I'm not going to get home until 11 or midnight or 1 a.m, depending on how far away you live, and then write a thing and turn it around. And there are so many times where you're doing it and you're like, there is no hope for this team. And so you inherently feel this kind of disappointment and this almost loathing having to do it. And in this case, it feels like, you know what, there are enough good things to be excited about that now, Ant, instead of us worrying about the outcome, and there will be many losses, we can actually look at this and say, all right, the same way that last year Torts had to go in there and try to clear out some of the nonsense, some of the riffraff, some of the guys that did not fit this plan and this culture. We now get to look at a team that's going to be molded in the eye of Danny Briere and with some influence from Torts and some influence from Keith Jones and their scouting department and all that. We're going to get to sit and watch these games, know that the results of the games have absolutely no relevance or importance, but we can look at it and we can actually start to focus on the player development, and we can focus on how each of these players could potentially fit in what they're trying to do over the next 2 years as they wait for Michkov to come over. It's almost funny in a sense, and they have built themselves, I think I said this before, they've built themselves a buffer zone here to be able to say, and you mentioned it in like how you sell season tickets, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever it ends up being that Michkov comes over, we are building this team so that when this stud player comes over, we are ready to contend. We are ready to put down the gas, right? And that's something we can all be excited about, I think.
I think that you're exactly right with that, Russ, and it's going to be interesting because, it's not always going to be easy to go down there and do that kind of analysis night in and night out, right? I mean, there's going to be a lot of games that are going to end up dragging, but in the grand scheme of things, when you really, are able to put together several games together and kind of look at, groups of games together and how guys are playing and where they're improving and where they're not improving and will they be part of it? I mean, I think it'll be better for us to discuss on the podcast than it will be to actually be there, in those. But being there and seeing it will benefit us from that perspective as well, because we're watching it and we're seeing it in person. It's a lot different watching it in person than it is watching it on TV, right? I mean, you see a lot more from where we are in the press box than you could ever see on television. And plus, you talk to people when you're down there and get some more, internal perspective. So that's where the benefit will be. It's going to be a pain in the ass to write about this team for a year, but that's okay. You could kind of look past that and sit there and say there is sun coming up over the horizon for the Philadelphia Flyers.
I agree. Listen, folks, we are going. I said, folks. I feel like an old man now, or I'm back in the classroom. Listen, we are going to be back on Thursday with a podcast. We're going to be doing that live on YouTube, youtube.com/@snowthegoalie. It'll also be streamed on Facebook and on Twitter as well. We'd encourage everybody to go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel, which, by the way, Anthony, we talked about this a bunch of times, but prior to the episode we did 2 weeks ago, we had under 1,000 subscribers, and now we're very close to 1,400 subscribers on YouTube. We're going to continue to ask people, go over. If you subscribe to the podcast feed and that's your jam, by all means, continue doing that. But throw us an ad, throw us a subscription over on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit the little bell so you get notified when we go live. I've been a big proponent of let's do live stuff. We like to interact with listeners. We like to interact with fans. So we're going to continue doing that. I think this worked. I'm going to go check the video after the fact, but I did a couple of check-ins. It does seem like this Twitter space going up on YouTube has worked, which is fantastic. This probably will not go into the podcast feed because we don't want to inundate people's podcast feeds with a million things. So if you're listening on Twitter and you missed part of this, I believe Anthony's recording it and it's going to be on Anthony's Twitter. But otherwise, it'll also be available on YouTube and over on Facebook as well if you want to go back and listen to this whole thing. But we will be back on Thursday with a live show, live streaming it on YouTube and probably Facebook as well. We don't have a time yet. We need to get in touch with Bundy, who is up north, about if he's going to be able to make it or not. And then if he is or he isn't, we're going to figure that one out. Ant and I will talk. We'll set a time. It's either going to be tomorrow morning or tomorrow night. We don't know yet. So keep your eyes peeled. And again, if you subscribe on YouTube, you'll get a notification. I'll set the episode up in advance that you'll get a little notification. It'll pop up and you'll actually get a notification on your phone or whatever that says, we're going live in 5 minutes or we've gone live. So you'll never miss a live stream. And then, of course, after we're done that, I'll edit it together and throw it in the podcast feed. So, Ant, is there anything that you want to say to the people before we head out of here, other than a big thank you to the people who gave us super chats on YouTube, which is very cool?
Yeah, no, thanks to those folks. Thanks to everybody who tuned into this Twitter space. I know I don't have the exact number yet. I'll have it as soon as we wrap it up. But I know it was at least in the hundreds, maybe more than that. We might have broke 1,000. I was trying to get a count in my head, just kind of scrolling through. But thanks to everybody. We'll do these more often as well, and we'll get things going. And let's get excited about the fight. We got a lot to talk about, not just off the draft tomorrow, Russ, but free agency's coming in a couple of days. And so it's kind of another interesting thing. Flyers won't be very active there, but there might be a couple of interesting names to discuss for this season, players that could help